All right, YouTube, it's time for a little bit of kinda sort of fake news coming from Venezuela. Now, let me give you the brief rundown on what's happening over the last few weeks in Venezuela. First, Maduro decided to wage war on bakeries in the country, nationalizing them in the process. That irked some people. Secondly, we had a story about it like a starving elephant at one of their zoos there. The poor creature, it looks like it's skin and bones. There's no food. So there's no way really to feed it. And they could just like turn it loose. Why don't you build like a cheap fence out somewhere and let it go like graze on a couple of acres or something and sort of be like a normal elephant? I know they eat like leaves and not grasses and stuff. Why don't you give it a little patch of forest down in the southern end of the country, temporarily move it out of the zoo so that it doesn't starve and like die? Because it's not going to look good for your nation if, the only elephant in your zoo keels over and like starts bloating. People will walk up, they'll probably start trying to eat it. They'll probably carve it up and be like, oh, well, I guess we're eating tonight for the first time in 2 weeks or something. Then we get movements by virtually the rest of the American states, almost all of them, saying Venezuela needs to hold an election and restore democracy. Some were calling, the U.S. didn't do this, surprisingly. The others were calling for kicking them out of the Latin American bloc, or the bloc of the Americas, so to speak. And then we have a group of Venezuelan soldiers. They entered Colombia. They apparently started having lunch, raised the Venezuelan flag, had to be escorted back into their own borders. So things in Venezuela, I mean, what madness is this that's going on here? Why are people even tolerating Maduro? I know he disarmed a bunch of people, but still, you outnumber. Like, is the military there? Are they really bloodthirsty enough to kill all of their own population off? I think they'd be dragging Maduro through the streets. If this were happening anywhere else, they probably already would have done it. Like, even like China. Even in North Korea, if there were this many people starving and this many systemic problems, order would begin to break down. But the one holdout of rebellion is that people have apparently started using Bitcoin and linking it with the sort of rare Pepe stuff. Sort of the Kekonomics, I guess you could call it. And it's actually forming like a black market economy. Now, there's already a black market economy in Venezuela with smuggled goods, specifically through Colombia, generally speaking. You smuggle goods back and forth at a premium, monetize them in US dollars when preferable. A lot of people have traded in their bolivars for other currencies. Doesn't matter whether it's Colombian currency, Brazilian currency, US currency is apparently chief there. Anything that's not Venezuelan currency is more stable, to the point where Bitcoin, with its wild fluctuations on world markets, is now a more stable and valuable currency in every possible way than the Venezuelan bolivar. Yeah, that's pretty sad. It's pretty sad to see what Chavez tried to build, kind of failed, and then Maduro totally pissed away as Venezuela, swirls around the toilet of socialism and begins devolving into a totalitarian dictatorship of sorts. So Venezuela is completely racked with problems. It has been, though, for several years. It's specifically, their economy is oil. That's all it is. And rather than take the oil revenue when times were good before the oil price collapse and invested in infrastructure and expanding, agricultural capabilities and stuff, and instead of trying to build another layer to the economy that would allow it to thrive with or without oil, like Colombia, they have things other than oil. Export crops, whatever it happens to be, livestock. Brazil has done the same thing. They raise beef. They have grains. They grow fruits, and there's all these. You go to Cuba. It's not just tourism. It's not just the little tiny amount of oil or whatever that they have. It's also there's cigars. There's rum. There are all of these things that they sell. Venezuela never did that. Chavez took that money and instead gave people microwaves and ovens and stuff. And while times were good, that was fine. Human development skyrocketed in Venezuela. Unfortunately, then the oil price collapse comes. Maduro continues those piss-away policies of socialism, and now they're deep in debt and they don't have the money to invest in the infrastructure they should have been investing in, at least to some degree, all along. That's why there are problems in Venezuela. It was short-sighted, Marxist-style economics. That's their problem. So now people are literally using Bitcoins because it's more stable than the Bolivar. And they're linking it to the rare Pepe stuff. Now, why is this kind of sort of fake news? Because this is a small sort of underground thing. It's not like their economy has literally switched over to rare Pepes. It's not like people are actually trading rare Pepes for Bitcoins as a second layer of currency. It's just linked to the meme. But it's hilariously funny. It's Kekonomics. It's Pepe economics or something, Pepe pricing, you could say. And it's surreal to think that in this modern age a state, it's not, we're not talking about some small sub-Saharan African state that never had human development. We're not talking about Micronesia or something like that. We're talking about a state that has probably more oil than any other in the world, and it's basically collapsed, and people have begun using frog meme associated bitcoins to perform their transactions while smuggling toilet paper across the Colombian border. It's sad. The people of Venezuela don't deserve to suffer like that. They should be dragging out Maduro. The opposition there is by no means perfect. Yes, you'd end up probably having to gobble down money from the US and other countries, but isn't that preferable? How is your insular socialism going to continue working? The oil prices just collapsed all over again, back down to another long-term level that they're probably going to remain at for years to come. So when you run out of all food, when you do have to butcher that dead elephant because there's nothing else to eat or resort to cannibalism, what's going to happen? These Latin American states, not the US, we should not get directly involved under any circumstances. It'd be a shit show, diplomatically speaking. And people would fight back against us. But if Colombia and Brazil and some of these other regional powers get involved, they may be forced into a situation where they have two regrettable things they can do. They can let Venezuela utterly collapse. It'll fall into ethnic cleansing. It'll fall into deep world status. All of the human development that Chavez did make will be totally pissed away. They'll end up a vassal. Or they can get involved. There will be fighting. There will be an actual war. People will, Chavez people, Maduro's people will claim that it's an imperialist fight to steal all their oil or something. Well, really, they're trying to secure food for the Venezuelan population. They probably will end up getting somewhat abused down the road. Long term, it's great help to them. They'll end up a very rich nation because of all the oil they have. Short term, yeah, it'll be suffering. It'll be war. Those are the two possibilities. Either the international community, at least regional international community, gets involved, gets rid of Maduro, installs a government that knows what it's doing, forms a new constitution, gets them into election mode so that the people there aren't starving, or they let it collapse. Either way, people suffer. Great fun. Thank you to socialism. That's about all. Peace out.